Welcome to the Football Show on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. Thank you very much for joining us on this Thursday with Alan Ruff and Alison McConnell here with me to look ahead to the weekend Scottish Premiership, all the matches lower league, and of course we'll cast an eye towards the Premier League and beyond in England and in Europe. So lots to talk about. You can give us your thoughts on any of the emerging stories today. We've got so many good interviews on the programme as well. Monday to Friday you get managers, you get players looking ahead to games, reaction to games, and on a Saturday Tam McManus joins me here in the studio 4 o'clock till 6 with the half-time and full-time reports, and of course managers and players talking about the game. With that in mind, we also have something that I think appeals to quite a lot of people. It's competitions.
It's another fantastic competition from PLZ Soccer. Rangers fans, Celtic fans recognise this jersey. Of course, you've played against them both in European football recently. It's the jersey of RB Leipzig. You can win this by answering the following simple question. What does the RB stand for in RB Leipzig? If you want to double your chances of winning, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck with that competition. Always nice to get a wee surprise coming in the post, and of course lots of people who've won our competitions are absolutely delighted with their prize. So good luck with that. Give us your answer, and you never know, if you hit the subscribe button again, that'll double your chances. And don't forget to tell everybody exactly what's happening. Now, as far as the quiz question is concerned today, we thought we'd throw in something that may well test you. And here it is. Why have Stade Reims been fined €25,000 for every league game played this season? So, why have League One side Stade Reims been fined €25,000 after every league game? That's a belter of a question today, Ruffy. Yeah. That's the type of question that there's no point in just actually guessing. If you don't know, you don't know, Ali. You don't know, do you?
No.
It was just that blank stare towards me, I could tell. Listen, I'll be perfectly honest with you, I didn't know either. So we'll give you the answer at the end of the programme.
No Googling.
Yeah, absolutely no Googling. It's a classic, isn't it? Don't look it up. And let's see how good you are at the quiz today. Take a guess. The competition, as ever, there's lots of people entering that, and by the time we get to Monday, we'll select a winner and start a new competition. Just start off with, I think, respects to Ron Gordon and his family. It'll be a particularly tough day today. It's the funeral service for the Hibs chairman. I think a lot of people appreciate the work he put in at Easter Road.
Yeah, I think so. I think there'll be a big gathering of Hibs supporters. I think they realise what he'd done for the club when he came in there. I think he handled himself particularly well behind the scenes, got the fans on board, you know, and eventually got the manager right, which is good. But I think if you ever get to Easter Road and you go in there, it's a lovely stadium. Everything that's happening behind the scenes is very, very positive, and it's all down to him.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, our thoughts with the family at this difficult time. Now, in case you didn't know, quite a lot of people, Robert Roundsay says, Alison been demoted to the apprentice side of the studio. You see, it's amazing. It's very rare that Ruffy and I have seen the left side of your face. We don't usually see that.
I know, it's taken her 3 months. Every day she comes in, this is not my good side. I need to be sitting there. So eventually we buckled and we'll let you sit there.
Exactly.
Can't find my good side.
Well, the thing about come on, Ali. The other thing about it is, got to the point where she was actually only putting makeup on the right hand side of her face just to save some dosh. It's World Book Day today, Ruffy.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. So there's more than a few good books. This one here was Fergie Rises: How Britain's Greatest Football Manager Was Made at Aberdeen by Michael Grant. Good book. Of course, there's been some really good books down through the years. Neil Drysdale, the biography of Walter Smith, and also this one here, which I particularly enjoyed, Brian Clough, the autobiography. Always helps to get a wee insight into them as well, and you know, and these are great. And of course, this one here, autobiography of Billy McNeill. I think that was Alec Gordon that might have done that one, if my memory serves me correct. I hope I'm right in that. But Jim Black did this one. Alec Gordon's written a book, I think, on Billy McNeill as well. So there are great books that everybody likes. What's your favourite sporting book? Doesn't necessarily need to be football. Give us your thoughts on that, and we'll read a few of them out. I had a few that I thought I'd throw out there. for people who might want to actually read them. The Damned United was a good book before the movie came out, which I think it ruffled a few feathers. Andre Agassi, Ruffy, Open, was fantastic because it gave you an insight into a boy who really, in the end, not at the end, but certainly midway through his career, hated tennis because of the real pressure his dad put him under.
Yeah, early. I remember reading a part of that book. I never finished it, as I usually don't finish books, but I remember I remember the early bit. His father put so much pressure on him. He actually punished him if he never got the ball over the net.
Yeah.
I can't remember how he punished him, but he was under so much pressure as a young kid. Every mistake he made, he was punished.
Yeah. John McEnroe's is a good book, but seriously, I like Andre Pirlo. I think, therefore, I play.
Mark Palmer's.
Yep, I like reading that one. And also, Patrick Bartley wrote a good book on Sir Matt Busby, which you can see the parallels between Busby and Sir Alex Ferguson and the way they went about their business and how they liked United to play wingers. We all love them. And our very own Archie McPherson was a real authority on Jock Stein. So there's some right good books out there. What about yourself, Ali?
There's a few that would stand out for me, but I think The Hand of God by Jimmy Burns is a great read if you ever get round to that. It's a fascinating and really well written book about Martindale, and obviously you think you know so much, but I loved the Hand of God one. Tony Cascarino's book was great too. Now I don't know
on the basis that he wasn't Irish in any case.
Yeah, I think as time has gone by, there has been cause to question how much is fact and how much is fiction in that book, but it's certainly a really enjoyable read. Yeah,
Ruffy?
Well, it has to be the rough and smooth. You can get it, in most book shops, down market book shops for £1. No, I'm not a big book reader. I've always said this. I did read one book, and you have to give me a time scale in this. It was Niall Quinn. After they'd come back, Republic Island had come back for the World Cup. Remember, right. What year was that?
That would have been 1990. Because Paddy Bonner, it was the reason why I know they got to the quarterfinals at Romania.
Yeah, and it was really intriguing because the first half of the whole book was all about Roy Keane. Yeah. All about what happened when they were away training, and the standards that Roy Keane set.
That would be a different Roy Keane wouldn't have been around it.
Well, it was a Roy Keane, and Niall Quinn was there.
Right, so it's a bit later.
So he...
I don't know when Niall Quinn was part of the coaching staff. Is that not after the 2002?
94 was USA.
94 was America. Even that would have been early for Keane.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was all about Roy Keane.
Well, it is Ruffy. Let's just
post 2002.
Yeah, it'll be about the last year probably. Knowing him.
It was all about the noise up and everything. He wasn't happy with how the players travelled on the plane and all the dignities. And then when they got there, the training was this and they didn't have that. And, and
that's what started
really
the argument, wasn't it?
Absolutely, that's where the big send home was. So thanks to so many people who Peg says I liked Ibrahimovic's bio. That must have been a good read because boy, the big man loved his cell, doesn't he? And he could back it up as well. He looked the business. James Wright says the story of George Connolly. I think there are always great stories when there's a twist. And George Connolly certainly was a really talented player who just couldn't handle the fame.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. That I think it's one of those. It's a tale that everyone knows when you're kind of being brought up. You're aware of this fantastic talent that never really blossomed as it should have. Yet I wonder how many players are like that are fantastic on a training pitch on a Monday to Friday, but just go into their shell a wee bit when they go out onto a stadium on a Saturday afternoon and just playing in front of people. I think it's an element of football that's probably easily overlooked. I think so many people feed off that energy and are enlivened by it, enjoy it, yet you obviously have a percentage who find it really inhibitive, to play in front of people and cope with that kind of pressure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like the part of books, and we had Pat Stanton in, and his book was a very good one. I like the books that the managers bring out when they pick their best 11, their best 11 signings, and I think most of them have done that. And it's really interesting who they pick.
I think it's kind of more interesting sometimes who they don't pick.
Well, exactly. That's the ones who are miffed. I like the thinking of Stuart Derrick, who says St James's biography. Well, I never thought we'd mention St James on the football show, but
really the best one of the lot is David Niven.
Is that right?
David Niven's supposed to get very good about his era.
Yeah.
When he was in Douglas Fairbanks Jr.
Yeah.
He's got a few
I get the
stories
feeling
to
I know where I know where this Hollywood story's going with. You know, Ali, you've telepathy now with him. Anyway, apart from anything else, World Book Day. It's always good. I'm going to order that Hand of God book now that you said that. It's just to see if it is well worth it. If it's on your recommendation, Ali, I'm going to order it. Okay, don't forget that we've got lots of great content on the YouTube channel that you can tap into. Of course, Alan Burrows, 1-to-1. We've got John McMaster as well. And this week, tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning, Adam Binney has got a really interesting insight into Sam Wardrop, who was a guy who started his career out as a young professional at Celtic and then moved on to various clubs, and then just at a young age decided to hang up his boots and, you know, open up on YouTube about training methods, helping youngsters on how to enhance their training. There's football skills a lot. His name's Sam Wardrop.
I wasn't enjoying it as much as I used to. It wasn't kind of my dream as such anymore, but also I started really enjoying life outside of playing football, and I realised that I could kind of lean into that more and just generally increase my enjoyment for life.
I'm Sam Wardrop, and this is my story.
Obviously I'd been full time, which is like Monday to Friday, play the weekend obviously with Celtic, Dundee United, and then I moved into part-time football, and I probably struggled to kind of find the balance between playing part-time football but then also balancing something else in my life, which was another job. Playing football was kind of taken away a little bit from what I was doing. So after 3 months I went in and spoke to the manager, Ian Murray, and I think he was a bit shocked when I went in and told him that I wanted to kind of end the contract. He was like, "Where are you going?" He was like, "What club are you going to?" And I was like, "No club." I was like, I'm stopping today.
Sam, moved on now, online content creator, online football coach, teaching and educating the next generation of football players. But reckon you could do it for me, one session just now?
Let's do it.
Sam, why do you do this? Why?
I mean, I do it because I genuinely enjoy and love kind of coaching people. I love making them feel good, because I kind of believe that there isn't a massive amount of support for young football players in terms of what I got as a player being at Celtic. So I want to share that, I want to educate, and what I always say with any piece of content or anything that I sell as a coaching service, I want it to be educational, motivational or inspirational.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, it's a really good feature. And if you want to see the longer version tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning, it might be something that some of your kids might want to enhance their training, their nutrition, their football skills. It's well worth watching. Great piece from Adam Binney. Okay, let's cut to the chase of what's happening in football at the moment. Jim Goodwin's checked in as the Dundee United manager, and of course quite a lot of people may be surprised that he's moved from being sacked at Aberdeen to suddenly thrust into the job at Tannadice. The owner Mark Ogren explained why he came to this decision. And he says, alongside the other board members, I wholeheartedly have confidence that Jim is the man to take us into this vital part of the season. As soon as we spoke, I sensed his desire and hunger to succeed for the benefit of Dundee United. His knowledge of the league and the opposition was an important factor, and he really impressed the board with his passion for the challenge we face. As a club, I would ask everyone of a tangerine persuasion to unite behind his leadership of the squad as we look to the end of season positively. So there you are. That's what the United board thought of it. Jim Goodwin, can he save them? He thinks he can.
You know, it's always the manager who eventually falls on the sword, because it's a lot easier to get rid of one man as opposed to get rid of 20. But I do think the players that are there take responsibility. I think they're all honest enough to look in the mirror and take their accountability for what's happened. And I think they're desperate to make amends.
So there you are. He's in. He's got a big job, Ali.
He's got a huge job. I think he'll know. If he keeps him up, he's got a job. If he keeps him up, he'll be there this time next season too. I'm sure he would have jumped at the opportunity that's come up. I don't think anyone would have expected him going straight back in when he left Aberdeen at the end of January and the circumstances around it. I think Dundee United have looked insipid. I think they've looked bereft of any ideas, bereft of creativity, not get the best out of guys like Stephen Fletcher, like Dylan Levitt. They've not drawn out the creativity and the goals of these players. I think sometimes you just need that. You need another manager going in, obviously with a third manager in a season. Something has to change, but I think their position is precarious. There's no question about it. I've seen quite a bit of Dundee United post-Christmas, and every time I've come away and thought they'd be odds on for relegation, they just have so little fight about them. So it'll be interesting to see if Jim Goodwin can go in and spark something and make sure that they stay up.
Yeah, listen, there's even a suggestion the board might not be there if there's a takeover.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be happening just now in clubs, you know, behind the scenes. There's lots of things going on. There's not a lot of clubs showing any financial profit at all. A lot of them are in serious trouble. So yeah, a lot of things are happening behind clubs, and he's very fortunate he's got back in as quick as he had, because we could sit here and list about 10 managers who have been waiting a year, 2 years to get back into the game. But I've always been impressed with him. I know it didn't go well at Aberdeen. The results are there for everybody, but what he did at St Mirren got him the job at Aberdeen, you know, so he must have did something positive, and they've identified something that's what they need at the precise moment in time. I always think he spoke very, very well, very honest after the games, but he just needs the players to start playing.
Yeah, he had a good line. You know, there's that many players, you know, pleading for him not to be sacked, but they couldn't actually back him when they were out on the field. Yeah,
that's always the proof's in the pudding. You know, as any manager will tell you, if you're not getting results, then you know it's only going to end one way. I think he was undone by a sequence of results from sort of just post World Cup to the end of January. I think the really fine margins. I thought they were pretty unlucky against Rangers at Hampden in the semi-final. They should have held on for at least a point that game at Pittodrie. They lost 2 goals in 90 seconds. Celtic, they lost points, 97th minute goal, 95th minute goal. I think such slim margins, but you could sense it just getting away from them in the last couple of weeks. And I think that performance today at Easter Road, when it all came to a head, I just thought I think you would have wanted it to have been ended after the Darvel game, because I think there was the ambiguity over the statement and everything else, and I think by the time it got to Easter Road, it was done. His race was won. But I've got a lot of time for Jim Goodwin. I think he answers questions very honestly. I think you get a straight answer, even when it's not going particularly well, and I'm sure he'll have a great amount of desire and hunger to go in there and keep them up.
Yeah, OK, he's got Aberdeen, which is ironic, Ruffy. Then Livingston, St Mirren, Rangers, Hibs, Motherwell and Livingston. There are a few winnable games in there before they hit that split.
Yeah, particularly against the ones that are down there. You know, what a difference it makes if you can beat the 2 or 3 that are above you, you know, and get points on the board. It can put pressure on them. So that he'll be looking at that fixture list, and he'll be looking at the games that him and the fans will be expecting to take 3 points, and there's certainly a few games in there they should be taking 3 points.
Yeah, OK, give us your thoughts. Can Dundee United avoid the drop? Is Jim Goodwin the man to bring some half-decent results to the Tannadice faithful? Give us your thoughts on that. Well, what about Rangers? They've been speaking ahead of their game against Kilmarnock at home at Ibrox. So we sent Kerry out there today to get the thoughts of the manager and, of course, the player. John Lundstrom was speaking.
Rangers take on Kilmarnock this weekend at Ibrox, where they'll be hoping to put the disappointment of the Cup to bed. With a number of Rangers players out of contract in the summer, Beale says that the weekend was an opportunity to see who he would like to keep around and how many players he would like to bring in.
I think we need to recruit 3 or 4 that are going to make a massive impact to the team. We need to sort out the futures, obviously, of the ones that are there. And it may be that I feel that we need to change 1 or 2 that are in contract as well. So there's no exact number on it. I need to make a strong team. At the moment, we have a recipe to a certain level, but in that game, we fell short at the weekend. And after it, there's a lot of emotions. You take 2 or 3 days to assess it. It's your job to assess it. It's not your job to be a fan, and it's your job to sit back and assess the players and who's got the appetite and the quality to take us where we want to go. And I'll keep that in-house, but I'm very clear on that. I've been clear on it for a while, but I'm definitely clear on the direction we need to go. It's just we're not at the summer window.
The Gers boss is no stranger to know that previous recruitment in the club hasn't always worked out as well as he would have hoped, but he's well aware that they can't afford to get it wrong this time round.
I think it needs to be done a lot quicker now. Sometimes when we recruited and paid good money, we didn't always get the recipe that we wanted. Sometimes when we didn't pay so much money, there's a lot of good players out there, and it's important we start that rebuild as soon as possible. At the moment, we have started it in terms of the work we're doing behind the scenes, but we know come the summer it's an interesting moment for the club in terms of changing the makeup of the group. I've sat in front of you before and said that I think 25% of the squad will turn over. I said that in one of my first meetings. I'm sticking by that. That's still the case.
Can Rangers get the fans back on side this Saturday, or will Kilmarnock take advantage of the cup defeat? It all takes place at Ibrox this Saturday at 3 o'clock.
25%, Ruffy.
Yeah, I'd love to go into his office and see the piece of paper that says the 3 categories. He's going to decide what he's going to do.
Why don't you shut up his door and say
who's staying, who's leaving, who. I'd love to know, and I think a lot of the Rangers supporters would like to know as well, because they've got their own opinion of who's doing it and who's not doing it. So we've spoken about it on numerous occasions. He sort of dodged it a wee bit there with Morelos and Kent. He sort of hinted there they're still negotiating with him. I don't know if that's the case. He's got to make his mind up. Are they going? Because that other bit of the piece of paper will need people to come in and take their places.
Yeah, I don't think too many Rangers fans will be that far away from what Michael Beale has on his list. There are a number of players who basically, through circumstance, you can tick them off. I mean, unless he surprises as Alan McGregor has that attitude of Gianluigi Buffon, I personally think he should have that attitude, because he's still one of the best goalkeepers in Scotland, McGregor. It's going to cost a few quid to get a half-decent one that operates at his level, Ali.
I think he'll know himself. I think that's a decision that's maybe made by Alan McGregor rather than the club. I think maybe he has enough credit there and enough credibility to say I've got another year in me and be trusted. Even so, I would still suggest that you would need another keeper, because at some point there's a transition has to take place, and I think you want someone who's ready. Yeah. And it will cost money, but it's such a key position. I think you saw it when Celtic allowed Craig Gordon to go just before the 10-in-a-row season, and Marcus comes in and he didn't settle, and you sense that unease that goes through the entirety of the back line. I think you really need to be getting that position right. But there are so many players out of contract, they're coming into the end of their contract at Rangers. I think you could go through a really sizable percentage of the squad that are all coming out of contracts, key players, experienced players, and I think there is a natural end for quite a lot of them. And this time last week, when you had the graphic that showed how many players were there at the 2019 League Cup final, I think there is a real accusation that Rangers have been stagnant when it comes to not moving players on quick enough, not bringing in replacements at the right time, at optimum points where you can refresh the squad. I think it's stale. I think they need to go again, and I think they need to clear out a lot of players, and there needs to be a reshuffling there of the first team squad.
Yeah, I think, when you look at the squad, even some of the players that were brought in, Ruffy, I think, there's been a fair bit of criticism. I mean, I'm just looking here. John Souttar's returned. Ridvan Yilmaz. I mean, these two players alone haven't made a contribution to that starting lineup for Rangers. And I think a number of people will have a list and go, okay, he can go, okay, he's at the twilight of his career, and they'll be ticking them off. And Michael Beale will have the same thing. The only thing that will probably shackle Michael Beale is circumstances where, quite simply, he's looking and saying, well, if I let him go, it's going to cost me a hell of a lot of money to get someone else of his calibre in there. And you don't know how much his budget is to duck and dive, but he's certainly going to trim it with 25%.
Yeah, he certainly has, but again, he'll have a piece of paper in his office that has a player's name with what they're worth to the club, what kind of contract they're on, much they're getting. He'll be looking at if it's 10 going out the window, how much he's going to save in wages with that, and what kind of players he can identify who come in on these wages. You know, what Ange did over at Celtic was he identified players who probably weren't on great wages, the Japanese boys.
Yeah.
So when they came to Celtic, you know, they probably were on a lot better than what they were, where they come from, you know. I think Michael Beale's probably dealing in a different market, you know, because the players he's going to be losing, if he goes down to England the way he has done, these players will be on good wages. So when they come up to Rangers, they're going to want the same as, or maybe more.
Yeah.
So that
you have
could
to
be a
remember
problem.
too that Celtic sold Odsonne Edouard, Chris Ayer, Ryan Christie. They were able to turn over the squad in order to realise finances that then go in to a rebuild, so you're able to sell players and say there are the funds that you can now go and source replacements, and like that you're bringing in a manager who had experience and knowledge of a market and a league that no one else had. And it's obvious.
Well, you never know, Rangers might go to that Asian market. I mean, you know, Hearts have done it, Motherwell have done it. They might just go and say, well, there must be something there that could add to our squad.
I think that's the key, is to go and look. It doesn't necessarily have to be an Asian market, but I think the key is maybe to look further afield in a European market, where it can be so financially pressing to bring in players that are on fairly bloated salaries, particularly in England. I think Scottish teams would struggle to compete with the Championship at the minute in terms of salary levels.
Yeah, Robert Rowan says that Rangers missed a chance when they didn't pick up Xander Clark. I agree with him.
I would agree with that too. Lewis Ferguson would be the one too that I would agree with.
That's a painful one, isn't it?
I think Lewis Ferguson would have been a fantastic signing for Rangers.
Yeah.
He ticks so many boxes. He would have been affordable at a certain point. I think he's probably now gone beyond the reach of Rangers when you look at what he's done this season out in Italy.
Yeah, and Jonathan says Hadji is back from a bad injury. It's going to take time for him, but at least he's back, and I think he's one of those players that Michael Beale will almost certainly look at and say, okay, there are 4 or 5 absolute stonewall certainties that can still stay as a starting 11. I need to try and supplement the 5 or 6.
He made a quote very, very early on that I've never forgotten, that he said, the players that are going to be staying at the club are the players that are going to give me a whole year's of football, not sitting on a bench, not getting injured, not being injured every 3rd month or something like that. I'm going to be signing players who have a track record of lasting a season. You know, and we had somebody in here yesterday, didn't they, saying that they're now analysing, you know, players, specifically what they do in a football game, and how many games they play, how many times they're not playing, and these things are now, looks as if the modern day are now looking at, you know, they're all looking at, you know, is he going to be injured for 2 months? How good is he going to be to me? And there's a lot of people at Rangers, unfortunately, come into that category, that they're not ready and available to pick from.
Yeah, I don't think that's just starting that, Ruffy. I think that's just been a big mistake. John Souttar is a lovely lad, fit, but unfortunately the record of John Souttar's injuries was so blatantly obvious to everybody. I mean, some of Rangers fans that I speak to are like, how in the heck did they agree to that deal? And he's John, when he's on his game and he's fit, is a brilliant player.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I'm sure he will be, on a personal level, he'll be absolutely gutted that he's not made any contribution. But I think your due diligence tells you that you must look and take an injury background into perspective. It doesn't always transfer that if you've had those problems that they're going to continue. If you've been given an assurance that certain things have been addressed and that they don't exist now, go back to John Hartson at Celtic, you know, the old story, I'm signing you, unless you've got a hole in your heart, I'm signing you, and it was a huge success. I think sometimes it's not just about the data. I think you can get it right even if someone has had a history of injuries, but the Souttar one, I would agree with you. I think there were big question marks when it was there, and the nature of those injuries can be very, very difficult to eradicate completely.
You know, it's funny you saying that, Alison. You know, a lot of managers, there are still some managers who go and watch a player, you know, and say, right, before I sign him, I'm going to see him now, and then your eyes don't deceive you, and you look at it. But the more that we go on and the more professionalism in business that the clubs have to show, business sense, the more they're relying on the data. And the more clubs now that are obviously trying to look towards that Moneyball blueprint, that is from the baseball that you see. I think Brad Pitt's in the movie, but it's a story basically of, a coach who brought in someone who analysed all the data and said, well, if you look at this guy and what he does, and here's his stats, he's worth a shout, but this guy's not doing it because he can't last the pace or he can't throw the ball correctly. So I think more clubs are starting to look at that and say, well, we can't compete with your Man Cities, your Man Uniteds, but we do have to rely on looking at individuals that might do us a turn. And whether it's an experienced one or a young one with potential, they are looking at the data more and more, Ruffy.
Yeah, I mean, footballers don't go out to get injured. It's just some of them are very, very unfortunate. They do pick up injuries. One that springs to mind, I know there was a lot of things going on apart for the football side, was Lee Griffiths. Every time Lee Griffiths come back, his calf went. And then he'd come back again, his calf went. And then he'd come back again, his calf went. I'm talking about people like that who, through no fault of their own, they've just picked up an injury they can't shake. And the manager's going to sit there and go, well, we've had a whole year now and we've played maybe 50 games. How many is he taking part in? And if it's only 6 or 8 and he's getting 10, 15 grand a week, you've got to make a decision.
Yeah, absolutely, and sometimes making the decision can cost you as well. Hugh Scott says, Peter, it's like Andy Webster. The only place where he was constantly injured was at Rangers. Everywhere else he went, he was always fit and he played. Yeah, sometimes, no matter what data, then, no matter what data, sometimes there's somebody who just defies all the odds on it and all the figures. There's always an exception to the rule, but nevertheless, Michael Beale's got a huge job. How many do you think he needs to clear out? How many would you like to see signed and starting in that first team? Give us your thoughts on that as well. That Rangers against Kilmarnock. Kilmarnock not with a great record, and they're another side that are desperately looking to try and get results because they've got Rangers, then Inverness, St Johnstone, Hearts, Aberdeen, Celtic and St Mirren before the split. So it'll be interesting to see if indeed Derek McInnes' side can lay a glove on Rangers, and I think the Rangers fans who make their way to Ibrox will certainly be looking for a big response. St Mirren against Celtic. By the time St Mirren and Celtic kick off on the Sunday, Rangers may well have reduced the gap to 6 points, hoping for some sort of slip-up, some sort of little incentive. It was indeed St Mirren that shocked Celtic, the last team to actually defeat them domestically, and that was at the Sweetser Stadium earlier in the season in Paisley. Kerry was out there today to get the thoughts of Stephen Robinson.
Here at the St Mirren Training Centre this afternoon, Stephen Robinson will be preparing his players for the return of Celtic to the Smizer Stadium this Sunday. The last time these two met in Paisley, it was 3 points for Stephen Robinson's side, but the Buddies boss says that's not the only performance against Celtic that he'll be taking encouragement from.
I think in all 3 of the games that we played, the scoreline in the last game reflects that it was, a massacre of sorts, but it wasn't. For 76 minutes we were very, very competitive. We were 1-0 down. And then we went down to 10 men. It's not to say we would have went on and won the game if we'd have kept 11, but we certainly caused them problems. We pressed them really well and took the ball off them at times. And we were right at the top of our game for that period of time, and the same with the game at home. So we know what expectations are in terms of what we need from our players to beat Celtic, to put a performance in against Celtic. We know their threats. We know that we have to be right at the top of our game. So we've proved we can do that. It's we're looking at clips and we're showing video highlights and footage before games, and it's not a one-off. It's been 3 games where we've caused problems, 3 games where it's been very tight, and sometimes it's been incredible play that's beat us, and great finishes because they're clinical, very, very clinical.
Greg Kelty says a huge factor going into this game on Sunday will be that they have to stick to their game plan and not second guess themselves when they come up against the league leaders.
I think the gaffer will probably reiterate that to us, that we need to believe in ourselves and believe in what he set us out to do. I think there's no point in getting into a shell or not trying to play the way that we set out to do just because it's Celtic. I can't say enough that sometimes it doesn't go to plan when you're playing such a good side, but at the end of the day we need to try and stick to it the best we can.
I think St Mirren are one of those sides, Ali, that really have given a good account of themselves against Celtic, tried to play football, tried to attack at times, albeit they did win earlier in the season, but even in the games when they have eventually lost.
Yeah, I think that game, it was September last year, I thought that's probably Celtic's poorest performance of the season. I don't think they had anything really about them. I thought St Mirren were worthy of the win that afternoon. I think they've unearthed a few, going back and speaking about players like Keanu Bacchus who's come in, they've brought in players that have been able to contribute, that have come from nowhere and have probably enhanced their value at St Mirren, and will probably move on and use it as a stepping stone, which I think is what you have to do for any successful club. I think you have to recycle players like that.
He's had his budget cut as well, to his credit.
He's had his budget cut. I think if you look at where they are, they have significantly outperformed where they should be. They've definitely punched above their weight this season in terms of the budget. Them and Livingston, I think it would be the two that you would highlight when you consider where the likes of Dundee United, St Johnstone, teams that have far superior budgets, where they are in comparison. I think he's done a fantastic job. I think they try and play a very particular style of football. I think they're fairly attack minded. They've got players who can score, and they've got quite a strong spine in the side. I think they'll look to make life difficult for Celtic at the weekend. I think they'll look to restrict the space that they're working with and do it again. Just go about their business the way they did in September.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Celtic side. Obviously they'll be in a high. They've got the League Cup back in the trophy cabinet, Ruffy, and they'll go through their usual relentless pursuit of the 3 points with, I think Greg Kiltian and the entire St Mirren side know exactly what's coming at them, albeit they are at home. But Celtic side, Ange Postecoglou will look at his squad, and do you think he'll be thinking, I can get rid of maybe 4 or 5 and just tell them, look, the end of the season comes, it's just not going to happen for you, and shift them out?
Oh, I think there'll be on his list. I mean, he'll have a list as well, the players that he wants to move on, and he'll have his own idea of what he needs to bring in again, so although Celtic have won the cup, there's certain players there will want to be involved in the 16 or how many it is, and they'll want to try and impress him. I'm thinking about Turnbull, people like that, who think he's a really good player, but he'll want to be part of the setup. But I can see a lot moving on, but it'll be the ones that aren't sitting on the bench, or aren't contributing. He'll make that decision.
Yeah, I mean, McCarthy and Welsh now, it's limited where their opportunities. I'm even looking at James Forrest and thinking, will James want to be that bit part player? He's achieved practically everything he could with Celtic, and he's got an impressive medal haul.
Yeah, I absolutely. I think it's a question that only he can answer, whether or not he wants to be a one club player. He wants to stay and finish his career at Celtic. I think his contribution often has gone under the radar, and I think he's slipped quite quietly out of view at times. I think he's been a fantastic player for Celtic. I'm not sure he always got the credit he deserved. The James McCarthy one, I think, was a baffling signing at the time, given the length of contract and the injury issues that he came with and his very recent track record. I sometimes think that Aaron Moy has maybe been the player over the last few months that Celtic thought they were maybe going to get, James McCarthy. I think in terms of that contribution over the last 4 or 5 months. But I think there are a number of players, one, who aren't playing regularly, who may go and look for first team football elsewhere. But I also wonder about whether Celtic will hold on to all the players that are there just now and featuring regularly. I think Rio Hatate has had an exceptional campaign. Cameron Carter-Vickers, I think too, has been linked with a couple of clubs down south. And I think Ange Postecoglou is quite clear in his message that if there are bids coming in for them, players want to go, he won't be trying to keep them. There will be no sentiment involved in the decision, and it would be a case of sourcing a replacement, a bit like what you saw with Josip Juranovic in the January window, that you have Alistair Johnson, a ready-made replacement there to go in fairly seamlessly.
Yeah, okay, that's St Mirren Celtic. You see a shock? Will there be points dropped at that one? Give us your point of view. What about Celtic? Players going out, players coming in. How many do you think he needs, with obviously Champions League group stages in mind, if Celtic were to go on and win the league this season again? There's a big match going on at Dingwall at the weekend. So many of our reporters were eager to head up there to Dingwall. Kerry's making the journey. And I was going to say at this point, if Ross County could produce a home win there, suddenly Motherwell are dragged right into it. I don't think Motherwell consider themselves out of this relegation dogfight just yet, so they'll be hoping that they can put a bit of distance between themselves and County. Stuart Kettlewell going back to his old stomping ground, this time as the Motherwell manager, so our reporter Patrick Mullen went out to find out what he had to say.
Stuart Kettlewell spoke to the media this morning ahead of his side's crunch fixture away to Ross County. Motherwell could move 10 points clear of the relegation zone with a win, but Stuart Kettlewell doesn't want his side to think too far into the future and only focus on the game at hand.
The task that faces is going to Dingwall and playing against Ross County. If we can get 3 points, that continues to help our cause. And I'm not really looking any further than that. I'm not really starting to think what implication does that has to teams that are below us in the division. I think that side it takes care of itself. I think the most important thing is you front up and you face the game that's ahead of you. And if you do that well and you play well and your standards are good and you're ultimately picking up points, then all the other bits we can start to discuss and talk about. But I've not spoken about it to the players. It really has been trying to get this mindset of the next game and being as good as we can in the next game. And I'm a genuine believer. I probably can't tell you what the next 3 or 4 fixtures are because I've been really zoned into what's coming next.
Yeah, big one. No sentiment involved there. He knows exactly what's at stake, Ruffy, if they can get the win.
Yeah, and it could be a lifesaver, the 3 points. It would make a big gap, but I think Ross County have got the bit between the teeth. I think last week's performance against Dundee United, the whole place would be absolutely buzzing this week. The players would be really, for the first time in a long time, actually looking forward to a game coming up. I thought Motherwell dug in last week and fortunate enough to get that really good goal at the end. But for me, it's Ross County. I think Ross County have got the bit between it.
Yeah, Ali, how do you see it?
Yeah, I think it's an intriguing game. I think both badly need the win. I think just to sustain recent results, I think you would want to be building on it. I think it might end up in a draw, actually.
Yeah, which both of them need like a hole in the head. But you can give us your thoughts on it as well. Don't forget, we have lots of reporters going out to all the grounds, getting the managers and players' reactions after the game on a Saturday afternoon. Tam McManus and myself in here just basically caning each other, having a laugh and bringing you all the scores as well, because after all, Ruffy, football's an entertainment. You've been with me for 10 years. Sometimes people try and dissect the atom when really it's a game where people want to have a bit of banter, talk about their team, leather each other occasionally, but not lose the plot.
No, I think that's part and parcel of the game. I think there's more opinion gets spoken after games on a Saturday. You get the whole week. We have sat here, speaking about a decision that's been made 5 days ago. So. And the supporters aren't any different. When they go to their work, they'll still be going on about what happened last week at any particular game they were at, and that's why football's so good.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, lots more to come on the show, and still a chance for you to win the competition. We'll go back over that. We'll give you the quiz answer as well. Give us your thoughts on the weekend's football in the Scottish Premiership. Roughly, because I've been with you 10 years, not as long with Ali, although I've known you, I think, 20 years, Ali, in the game. But I think I can get away with saying to you, if I'd said the same thing to Ali, she might banjo me. Are you due a haircut? You looked as if you rushed in here today. Can you imagine saying that to you, Ali? The whole place would have gone mental.
Unfortunately, I didn't have time. William McManus has where he gets in and he gets his moisturiser and all that, and gel and everything. Yeah, but you're right.
You were in a rush.
I have to say I had something on the day that I was caught short.
Caught short, yeah.
Can I just throw out there? See all these traffic lights that are up there? There's 3 sets of traffic lights I've got to get for the beginning of your road down here. Yeah. And I don't know how long I'm going to be stuck at them. If I get a clear green light, I'm here in time. But unfortunately today, I wasn't.
Did you have the window down in the car? Is that what happened?
Is it bad? I thought because I was at this side, it'd been okay.
I feel there's a haircut coming on, Ali. Can't get away with it on this programme, can you? Anyway. You see, another thing about it is some people are easily offended, but not you, Ruffy. Not me. No. I don't mind when people have a go at me. It's absolutely fine.
I'm easily offended.
Yeah, I know you are. Ali, you're certainly not. You would never have been part of my family because when you get 7 sisters, Ruffy, they're hardened, opinionated
and
as
even,
well.
Even if you're a football player, if you've played in the region of Hamilton Accies and you get what's his name, waiting and you coming off the team bus from Partick Thistle at Hamilton, and he's waiting and you coming out.
Oh yeah, the great fan, Fergie. He was
if you can stand anything that Fergie throws at you when you come off that team bus, you can handle the next 90 minutes. And even when he's standing behind the goals, he's still rabbiting on.
Yeah, those type of fans are it's funny actually. I mean, it's tongue in cheek, as long as it's not abusive. Those type of fans are long gone, aren't they?
They certainly are. And the Fergie one, he was a legend, and if you ask anybody, I think the best Fergie story is, without going on about it, was John Lambie was at Thistle or something, and they were coming back for Inverness, and Hamilton must have been playing somewhere further down the road, and there he was at the side of the road. So John Lambie stopped the bus. He said, "What's the matter?" He says, "Oh, I missed my bus going back." And he says, "And you come in." And he comes in and he puts him up the back of the bus, the players, and after about 10 minutes, "Get him off the bus, get him off." The players were going, "Get him off." Slaughtering them all up the back. You're murder. You're terrible. So you threw him off at Dundee.
That would be fantastic, wouldn't it, Ruffy? Can you imagine some lucky fan having the chance to go on the bus and tell them what for? That would be sensational. It doesn't happen these days, but that was typical of John Lambie. Now, today, amazingly, Ruffy, I was out there and I thought, I looked at all the press conferences that were going on. I thought, okay, Ali, I can't remember the last time I was at a press conference, but I thought I'll get out there to Livingston, turned up early, as every professional should, Ruffy. Turned up early and nobody else turned up. It was just me.
Just you?
Yeah, I was the only broadcaster there. And I thought to myself, well, and David Martindale, to his credit, came in, had a look, sat down.
Took a note of it in his black book.
No, he couldn't stop laughing. He thought it was just me and you, Pedro, and that was it. And away we went, obviously, you get a great chance. If you want to see the full interview, I just sat there with him in a one-to-one. It was magic because he was in here, Ruffy. I've got a lot of time for him.
And I suppose you've been the true professional. We'll share that with other journalists who weren't there.
Oh, well, that's not how that works.
No, what happens is they lift it. Is that how it works, Ali? Absolutely. Although, to be fair, we're in a game where we all have to muck in together. Believe me, I've done that all the way through my career. I asked David Martindale because, quite simply, he's a man that's not been linked with too many jobs, which I'm surprised. Some people don't like him, especially on this feed here, where people actually turn around and and basically, they've got no time for him. I've spoken to some people who don't think he's as good a coach as, the evidence of what he's doing at Livingston. I like him. I like the way he talks. I like the content. And I was asking him today about managers. Only in this last 12 months, a manager sacked after 7 games, one sacked after 19 games, another sacked after 22 games. And there's this kind of a culture now. If you don't get the quick fix, you're under pressure. And I think David Martindale talked a lot of sense today about the need for chairmen, owners, whoever's picking the manager, to stick by them.
I think where you get a lot of your success in football is through continuity. I do understand it's very, very difficult because fans are wanting quick fixes on the park, boards are wanting quick fixes on the park. Financially, football is very, very volatile, especially at our level. But I do think it's going to be an industry that's going to need looked at sooner or later.
Was there a written guide through?
I mean, it's a good point that he makes, actually. There's a couple of written journalists there, Ali. A couple of written journalists made it. I thought to myself, surely I'm not going to be the only one. Yeah, there was a section for the written journalists, but he's good copy. And I think he talks a lot of sense. He's got a good chairman there who will stick by him, gives him the time. It's a unique club for that. But I don't know what it is, Ali. Maybe it's like the Malky Mackay situation, the baggage. People don't want to actually touch him, but as long as he keeps confounding the critics and keeping Livingston in that Premier League.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I think he's spoken about it himself. He said that I think the fact that his background probably works against him, that he's not quoted sometimes when jobs come up and it's overlooked, the job that he's done at Livingston. I would agree with you. I like dealing with him. I think, like a lot of managers, you ask a question, you get a straight answer, you get an opinion. I think he's very upfront. Celtic fans, for some reason, love to hate him. Celtic fans seem to think he's
because they're a Rangers fan.
He's so anti-Celtic. Yeah, I think my own experience dealing with him, speaking to him, is that he talks Celtic up. He's very complimentary about Ange Postecoglou, about Celtic, about how they play. I think he's very open. I think he's very approachable, and I think you know that you're getting a straightforward answer.
Yeah, I don't think he's hid the fact that he was a Rangers fan as a boy. It's not a crime, Ruffy, with people. You know, the nature of our industry is quite simply they always want to tag someone. You know, you're a Rangers fan, a Celtic fan, so your opinion can't be worth its any. It
means it's weighted. It's always like there's a weight one way or another.
Like, one way or another. I think David Martindale, you know, okay, so he liked Rangers, but he's a manager of Livingston and he gives us all for them.
Yeah, and I think he's now at a stage where he has realised that what he's done at the club has been fantastic. And I saw an interview somewhere saying that he doesn't know whether he can take them to another level. And it's upsetting him that he can't take them to another level because he knows they're a good community club. I think he was shouting out there for more sponsorship, more backers, more people on the board to take the club to another level, which I thought was positive. Because if we're all saying he's not going to get another job higher up, then he's obviously knows he's not going to get it. So where he is where he wants to be. So he wants to make them better. He wants to make them a top 6 team every year, not just struggling every year. But I agree with you. I think everybody should be given a second chance. He showed all the remorse that he has to show, you know, and you have to move on.
Yeah, thanks to Bonnie who says, Peter, I've just ordered the Hand of God, £2.29 on eBay.
Wow.
Well, that's not bad, by the way. That's exactly.
I'd be keen to hear his thoughts once he reads it.
Yeah, and let's hope all the pages are in that book at £2.29. There's nothing worse, Ruffy, than somebody sneaked a couple out at the cliffhanger.
That was a standard joke in the international Scotland team. If you went away for 2 or 3 weeks and somebody would be reading a book and you knew they were reading a book, last page wouldn't be there at the end of the trip. I had to go.
That would do your head in, wouldn't it? It really would.
What age? What was the average age?
By the way, honestly.
Yeah, boredom sets in. These kind of things happen.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens.
If you're reading War and Peace.
Yeah,
the last chapter's gone.
Yeah, but I don't think there's too many Brian McClares in that Scotland squad that could read War and Peace. But nevertheless, I think he makes some really good points. Thanks to Bonnie for that. Hand of God, I'm going to order it. I'm not sure I'm going to get it, Bonnie, for £2.29. Hearts against St Johnstone as well at the weekend. Hearts still third. Hibs now just 5 points behind, Ruffy. I think there's I was looking at Ryan Stevenson, you know, bring it on, you know, this rallying call for Hearts in this whole situation with Hibs. You know, for Hibs being in transition, they're hot on their heels.
Yeah, and Hearts have stuttered a wee bit. You know, we've been talking them up for months, but like every other team, sometimes you hit a brick wall, you don't get the results you're supposed to get, and it's given Hibs a chance. You know, I don't think if we sat here 2 or 3 months ago, we would have thought Hibs would been that many points behind them. So all credit to them, they're on a wee bit of a run just now, but I think Hearts really just need to get back on the rails.
Yeah, Callum Davison set the target for St Johnstone of 40 points. He reckons that's the point, that's the figure that gets you into the top 6.
I'm sure that will be the ambition between now and the next 6 games. I think so much depends on whether or not they can find a level of consistency that's eluded them. I think it's been better across recent weeks. I don't know that they're entirely out of the woods yet. I don't know that they're top 6 material.
Yeah, no?
I don't know. I think it depends how consistent they can be.
Yeah. What about this, guys? The Scottish MPs have called on the UK government to launch a review to ensure Scottish football fans can watch big international games without having to pay. I think, whereas their intentions are honourable and I admire them for actually standing up for the common man, I think those days are gone.
Yeah, I think every association and every football has to raise money the same as everybody else. You would like to think that behind the scenes when they have meetings and when they're going to start and price things that they have the fans at the back of their minds when they do that. But there's so many of them losing money as well. They have to look after themselves. But you're right, there's that many avenues now and supporters are having to pick and choose what they want to get involved in.
Yeah, of course there are games that are at home in England and Wales where people can watch them free to air, but that deal is not on offer for Scotland, and I think a lot of fans, want to see it, but again, because of the current economic situation, energy prices, the lot, it just puts you under so much pressure.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult. I think sport is one of the luxuries. I think having access to paid television channels that show live games is a luxury, and it's one of the things that people will trim when you're having to pay out more in utility bills and energy bills, food shopping and petrol. We know where that's all been over the last 18 months or so. I think I can see both sides of it. I think you would love to think that high profile international games are shown to as big an audience as possible, that they're there on terrestrial television channels for people to access, but the reality of the sport now is that it has to try and generate as much income as possible, and that means basically selling to the highest bidder and trying to bring in as much money. I think that's just the financial reality of the current climate of the game.
I think your idea of the future is you just pay for what you want to see.
That is coming.
Instead of paying, I don't know what it's, £30 a month or something like that, and you're getting games done in England for the Championship or the First Division, and if you can pay whatever it is and set it at a reasonable price, there are so many games you really want to see, and sometimes you can't afford them.
Ruffy, that's coming. It's the DAZN blueprint, which is basically in Italy. If they want to watch a game, Juventus against Lazio, they pay a tenner, there's no subscription, they get it on their phone. You can get it on your tablet. That's the way that's going to happen in the future. There will be various packages that you can sell. If we were smart about it up here, which we're not, we're a backward nation derailed by self-interest with clubs. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn there. But if we were a smart country and a smart group in the SPFL and the SFA who could look at this, you could look and say to yourself, okay, I'm going to sell this live package, but here's another block which is a live package for home games. Here's another block which is the DAZN one, which is quite simply, they'll put in all the money, a huge amount of money, and then people can buy the tenner game, and all the clubs get a percentage of it. The difficulty with that sometimes is some clubs at the lower end would say, well, wait a minute, they're not exactly going to be a lot of people buying into St Mirren against Livingston, which is fair comment, but that's on the basis that you're only selling one deal. If they put together 4 or 5 different packages that all brings in money and all gives them the ability to say to a sponsor, listen, this is the coverage you're getting, satellite, free to air, you'll get your brand out there as well.
I think it's definitely a sensible way to go, and I think there's a clear appetite for it. I know I think you first got a glimpse of it, of the potential of it during COVID, when clubs were able to stream games, and you could say you can come and buy whatever game it is that you want, you can come on and buy it through the club channel. Now, obviously that's not going to work in terms of a fair distribution of wealth generated through television income, because Celtic and Rangers would take in the vast amount of the resources. I think you have to come up with a more equitable way of spreading the finances through the game. But I think clubs need to be creative. I think the league has to be creative. I think you have to go and look at how do other countries do it, how do they do it with other sports. It doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily have to look at how football does it. How do you do it in the States or elsewhere?
They need to change their mentality, Ali.
I think so.
They've got to change for the collective, not for the individual.
Yes, I would say so, which is always going to be difficult.
Exactly. Now, just before we go, a couple of things quickly. FA Cup, there's some belter games going on. I thought West Ham at one point were actually going to get a shock win there, and then United came back. Tottenham knocked out Sheffield United doing the business. Grimsby, you ever been to Grimsby, Ruffy?
No,
I've been to Grimsby.
Okay.
Yes, it's very famous for the fish, and they brought the fish along for their game. To win that match. They knocked out Southampton. No great surprise there. Why are you looking at me like that?
What kind of fish did they bring?
They brought the blow up fish doll. I was going to say dolls. It's a fish blow. Anyway, it's a blow up fish. so they had them in great numbers, and they knocked out Southampton. And I felt sorry for Scott Brown at Fleetwood. Listen, they were down to 10 men, and it took the 90th minute before eventually Burnley got the winner.
Yeah, I'll be hoping these players get a wee bit of confidence for that. They were slipping nearer the bottom of that league that they're in, but he keeps getting wee results here and there, so he'll be building on that, and you would hope that they could move away.
Arsenal going to win the league?
No, for me, no. Man
Still
City.
not. Okay, 4-0 against Everton.
I think they might.
They might, yeah, okay. It's interesting. I certainly would love them to win it, because obviously my team Liverpool have got no chance. Just hoping they can get into the top four. They had a 2-0 win, back to some good moves last night with Van Dijk and Salah scoring. So that's the English Premier League as well. As far as the quiz question, it was a belter, Ruffy, wasn't it? This was a tough one today, but some people actually got it right. Why have Stade de Reims been fined €25,000 for every league game played this season?
I'm going to hazard a guess that it was a massive fine that they got for something. And they couldn't pay it up front, so they said we'll pay it every league game.
Yeah, okay. No, rubbish. Will Still is the manager of Stade de Reims, and he doesn't have a pro licence. So Stade de Reims, even though they're on a 16-game unbeaten run in the league, every week that he's the manager without that pro licence, they're fined €25,000.
That's insane.
It is.
That's absolutely insane.
I just showed you that's the nature of the game. That is lunacy.
Why can he not go and set his pro licence?
Well, he's probably having to do that right now to try and eradicate this €25,000 fine that's coming at them non-stop at the moment. But he's on a 16-game unbeaten run in the league, so
he's doing something right.
He's doing something right. You know that.
Can he not just put that forth as his presentation?
I was going to say, others who coach can't do it. Anyways, everybody now needs a badge or some certificate. You know what it's like. You need a medal. Some people get it. You get a medal for finishing last these days. Although I ran the New York Marathon, and one of our journalists in here said to us, everybody gets a medal. I thought, well, how to belittle my efforts, Ruffy.
To be fair, not everyone can run a marathon.
No, absolutely. Well, not everybody can run 5, I have to tell you, which is why I needed a resurfacing hip. Anyway, here's the competition. Chance for you to win something.
It's another fantastic competition from PLZ Soccer. Rangers fans, Celtic fans recognise this jersey. Of course, you've played against them both in European football recently. It's the jersey of RB Leipzig. You can win this by answering the following simple question. What does the RB stand for in RB Leipzig? If you want to double your chances of winning, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck, and if you've got some time, why not watch Sam Wardrop with Adam Binney? It's 9 o'clock tomorrow. It will be released. A lovely package, a little insight into what he's doing now. Sam, we wish him well, and of course I think a lot of kids will be into what he's doing already, and many more hopefully after you watch that package with him. We've got lots of great stuff. If you want the full interview of David Martindale, I caught up with him today in that press conference. You know, he's got a lot of sensible things to talk about in football as well, worth a listen on our YouTube channel, as well as you can hear Michael Beale. You'll also hear John Lindstrom talking about the gap between Rangers and Celtic after that League Cup final defeat. We've got all the managers and players giving you their thoughts ahead of a game, and all the managers and players talking about the results after the game on Saturday. Join us if you can at 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. I leave you with Hugh Scott's line. He says, Peter, when Will Still took over at De Reims, surely things can only get better. It's a 90s gag. I'm happy with it, Hugh. And on that note, Ruffy's got that kind of 1,000-yard stare saying, who are De Reims? What does he mean things can only get better? Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.